For a while now, I have been planning to talk about the games I hope to play and or discuss on the channel. In the last video I did about Scorn, one of you asked me what other games I was thinking about analyzing, and well, that was the last push I needed to encourage me to talk about it. Well, it seemed to me that due to the amount of games, I should split this into 3 videos, so that each game has its own space without having to explain things in a hurry. It should be noted that all the games I will mention are not yet released. Of course, I plan to talk about games that are already available, but in these videos I will focus on those that are yet to be released. With that said, let's get started. Nazralath, The Fallen World is a story-driven, third-person dark fantasy action-adventure game with RPG elements, focusing on a compelling narrative and exploration through a rich, strong sense of atmosphere and world, inspired by titles such as Planescape, Torment and Dark Souls, as well as the twisted works of Czesław Beksinski and H.P. Lovecraft. Nazralath is a deep delve into the occult realms of dark fantasy. You are Orpheus, a fallen knight hailing from a seemingly distant land. Your past is but a faint memory, hinted only through the faded allurements of your dented armor. You awaken in a cold, decrepit tomb in the bowels of a Deerfall temple, with wounds that would have slain you 5 times over. Haunting dreams follow your thoughts, and your fragmented memory proves merciful enough for you to recollect your name, if little else. Delve into a surreal world where all sense of normalcy is fleeting. Exploration and dialogue are key aspects of Nazralath. The choices you make and the relationships you forge will irreversibly shape your journey through how this tattered, broken world. This is how this game is described, which also tries to recreate environments directly inspired by Beksinski and H.P. Lovecraft, just like Scorn and Necrophosis, about which I already made a video. However, very different from this last game, Nazralath seems to know how to differentiate itself enough not to suffer criticisms like being just a plagiarism of Scorn. Although it is true that environments bring us back to the same, the medieval atmosphere, fantasy and RPG make it distinguish itself enough to then become its own game. Personally, though, it's this very element that distinguishes it that I don't like about this game, since I'm not a big fan of sword fighting, medieval armor, or anything medieval in general. I'm more into futuristic and sci-fi stuff. The reason I'm looking forward to this game is clearly because of the scenarios it offers, and clearly because of the mystical and arcane story that I want to analyze and explore. However, what I think is a very good gameplay detail is the decision making that irreversibly changes your story. I know I am a person who makes a lot of bad choices, but still I always enjoyed games that allow you to punish yourself in this way and really see it reflected in a different ending or different events, merging the fantasy of the game with your identity and resulting in something clearly repeatable but with the feeling of being unique. As you have heard, the game is basically an RPG in which you will have to explore, do quests, gather resources and probably constantly upgrade your armor and weapons, forge relationships with different characters and make decisions always knowing that it will change the course of your story. Are you a fan of this medieval style? Will you play this game? And most importantly, what do you think about the combination of medieval fantasy and cosmic horror? I already made a video for this game as well, but there is still a lot of information I have to analyze and put into the channel. Anyway, it's not out yet, so of course it should appear here. When this game was first announced 5 years ago, it was only a matter of time before it was called the spiritual successor of Dead Space. In the course of the game's development, it has obviously distanced itself a bit from that, although the inspiration can still be seen in details, such as the fact that the main character is a doctor who has to use his knowledge as a doctor to survive, just like Isaac uses his tools and engineering knowledge. Before describing the game further, let's let the game do it. Negative Atmosphere is a third-person, over-the-shoulder survival horror game dedicated to dread, tension, and trauma. Trapped aboard the void ship TRH Rusanov, Samuel Edwards must evade, fight, and kill his former crewmates as an outbreak transforms them into monsters. There's only one way out, an entire ship to cross. Danger lurks around every corner and time is running out. ground. Explore the depths of the Rusanov, pull whatever resources you can out of its guts, and run. This game will offer an experience very similar to Dead Space, there is no doubt about that, but throughout the trailers you can see creatures whose encounters will probably mean instant death. Another highlight about the gameplay is that rather than a weapon, what we carry seems to be a gun that allows the administration of substances that Edward will use to heal himself, heal someone else, create certain unmentioned effects on him, and clearly damage his enemies. But remember that it is not a firearm, so this will also increase your feeling of helplessness. This game will also feature mechanics that serve as variables that will affect Edward's mental state and how he reacts to certain events. These mechanics are not mentioned, by the way. Although there is obviously not much information about the story at the moment, the details that I have been able to observe in its official channel and the diversity of characters presented even without having released the game, I think the story will be the real strength of this game. That is to say that it will be rich content of things to explore and analyze. And you know what that means for me.
El dinero.
A grounded, prehistoric science fiction story that features a relatable protagonist contending with grief, the obligations of family, and the challenges of the incredible world she finds herself in. What begins as a simple trip to an isolated village becomes the adventure of a lifetime as Izzy is thrust in the middle of a modern conflict in an ancient hidden world. Deep in the Yucatan jungle, she discovers her grandmother's heritage, an incredible hidden civilization that lives side by side with dinosaurs, threatened by forces from without and within. I know I said I like futuristic, but well, it's dinosaurs. Who doesn't like dinosaurs? Also, in my defense, the same description mentioned that it's sci-fi. This game seems to want to be something like Sons of the Forest, with a main story to discover, but with a wide world that allows you to explore on your own and experiment with the environment and the artificial intelligence of the dinosaurs. The game will have stealth mechanics, melee and ranged combat, supernatural abilities, environmental mechanics that will have you facing hordes of enemies, and boss battles, including objectives that will give you the control of the dinosaurs. I honestly don't even know what to expect from the story with this description, but considering the variety of mechanics, graphics, exploration, survival, supernatural abilities, and the ability to play online co-op, I think the game will offer not only a good story, but several hours of fun. Paranormal Tales is a game quite easy to describe. It is a found footage type game in which we will witness the last moments of its authors at the hands of paranormal things. Being the game developed in Unreal Engine 5, clearly one of the greatest strengths will be the graphic sections. The game will have several stories in different places that we will be able to explore and from which we will try to escape. I must say that the presented requirements are not very high, and taking into account the size of the game, it may not offer too many hours of gameplay, so I see it also come at a moderately affordable price. The game looks pretty intense, so tell me, would you really dare to play it? I knew about this game from its respective trailer that came out in 2022. It immediately caught my attention because of the thumbnail, and the trailer itself is quite brutal. Upon further research, the game has been in development for 11 years. Little fun fact, Mick Gordon, best known for the soundtracks of Doom, also released a short video of this game. Anyway, Routine is described as a first-person sci-fi horror game set on an abandoned lunar base whose design is inspired by the 80s vision of the future. You know, like in Alien Isolation. Although this game actually came out a year after the first Routine trailers. Anyway, the game promises a very similar experience, exploring and surviving in a facility while hiding or running from enemies that will really make you feel in danger. The game strongly recommends you running and hiding. Although improvements are mentioned for the CAT or Cosmonaut 8 tool, which seems to be some kind of weapon with a low refresh rate and poor display quality, it is mentioned as a last resort item. During one of the older trailers, this tool was used in one of the enemies, but it seems that all it did was stun them momentarily, just to give us a few seconds of advantage when running out and looking for a place to hide. There don't seem to be more than robots as enemies, but they seem to be instant dead or at least too deadly to even consider fighting with. If there are only robots as enemies, I think the story is somewhat deducible, but I still get the feeling that this game has a lot to offer and is one of the games I'm most looking forward to discuss on the channel. And so far this is the first part. Let me know which of these games catch your attention, which you already knew and which you discovered here. I'll see you soon, but for now, this was Kevin, and I'm not telling you goodbye, but until next.